Jesus the Lord. He reigns forevermore. He reigns, Jesus the Lord. He reigns forevermore. Roll the announcements, Keegan. Try again, Keegan.
Hey, Forest Park, it's Emily, and here are your Sunday morning announcements. Beginning on Sunday, February 19th, we will be kicking off the Community Bible Experience here at Forest Park. The CBE is an 8-week program that lets you read the Bible how it was meant to be read. No chapters, verse numbers, red lettering, or anything else that gets in the way of a great reading experience. More importantly, the Bible was meant to be read in community, so we are encouraging our families and small group leaders to read the New Testament together over the next 8 weeks. You can order a book at the Communications Hub after both worship services for $5. Our mission spotlight in February is Bridge to Life Ministries. Bridge to Life focuses on marriage and relational issues for the purpose of healing men and women to God and each other. You may get more info at the missions table all month long and visit with their representatives in person on Sunday, February 12th after both worship services. Thinking about becoming a member at Forest Park? Want to know more about the vision and mission, what we believe, and how to get connected? Please join Pastor David on Sunday, February 12th from 12:30 to 4. Lunch will be served and childcare can be arranged. You can sign up on your Connect card or contact Cindy Ackerman. On Sunday, February 26th, the team from Portage Lake will be joining us during both worship services. We will have the camp worship team here and will be sharing stories about the impact camp has had on our kids, students, and adults. You will also be able to register your kids for camp at Portage Lake this summer.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome and good morning. You are at Forest Park Covenant Church. Yeah. Glad you're here. The only other announcement that I have is the rose back on the organ is because a new life has been born in our community. Proud parents Seth and Kristen Beals welcomed Luke Robert Beals this week, weighing in at 8 pounds and 15 ounces. Proud grandparents are Bob and Pam Irwin. So congratulations to the Irwin and Beals family. Would you stand this morning? And let's go to God in prayer. Hear the words of Jesus as we enter into God's presence. He says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never, ever be thirsty. Let's pray together. God of every good gift, we come today seeking many things. Father, some of us are seeking peace. Some of us are seeking healing. And some of us are seeking right answers. And others are just looking for the right questions to ask. God, we place our trust in you today. We acknowledge your presence among us and ask that in this next hour you will give us faith and hope. For those who are seeking peace, Father, give them peace. For those who are seeking healing, God, we ask that you give them healing. And for those who are seeking answers, Father, be their answer. Let us be able to go from this place changed people because we have encountered you, our living God. This is the day that we give to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Behind. I'm setting my heart and mind on you, Jesus. I'm reaching my hands to yours, believing there's so much more, knowing that all you have in store for me is good. Oh, it's good. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I won't worry about tomorrow, trusting in what you say. Today is the day. Today is the day. I'm putting my fears aside. I'm leaving my doubts behind. I'm giving my hopes and dreams to you, Jesus. I'm reaching my hands to yours, believing there's so much more, knowing that all you have in store for me is good. Oh Lord, it's good. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I won't worry about tomorrow, trusting in what you say. Today is the day. Today is the day. I will stand upon your truth. And all my days I live for you. Yes, I will stand upon your truth. And all my days I live for you. All my days I live. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the day you have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I won't worry His kingdom is forever, forever and ever. A mighty fortress, a rock unfailing, the King of glory forever. Amen. For endless ages, enthroned in praises, the King of glory forever. Amen. A mighty fortress, a rock unfailing, the King of glory forever. Amen. For endless ages, enthroned in praises, the King of glory forever, forever. Amen. His kingdom is forever. It is a kingdom of peace. Let's pass the peace among the body at Forest Park this morning.
Yeah. Morning. I'm not sure what you're doing this afternoon, what kind of traditions your family has. Could be because you're super excited about the game and who's playing. It could be because you're super excited about the commercials and how funny they might be. If you're anything like my family, you're probably more excited about the snacks that you get to eat and that you're allowed to eat them in front of the TV. That's a pretty big deal in our house. So we all have funny traditions. This is a pretty important tradition that was passed down to us from Jesus, through the disciples, through years of church leaders, and more than just a tradition, because we have many traditions here in the church. More than a tradition, Jesus said this is one of the two things you must do. If you say you love me, if you say you follow me, you as a church must come to this table together and often to remember who you are and to remember who I am. So we all come to the table today because we know and love and follow Jesus. And not because any one of us is better than the other. Not because one of us this week, yep, check, check. Ooh, I got a straight A's this week, 100%, I did it. It's not like that. We all come to this table because we all need grace. We all need to be forgiven. We all need to be reminded that God loves us and is with us. I'd like to invite the ushers to come forward and ask you to pray with me. God, I thank you that you invite us to this table continually. God, no matter how our week has gone, no matter how many times we've forgotten to look to you, to seek you in our days, no matter how many times we have sinned against you, our family members, or our friends, no matter how many times we've forgotten to love our neighbor, God, you invite us to this table, calling us to ask for forgiveness, and then reminding us that your forgiveness awaits us all. God, we thank you. We thank you for this tradition. We thank you for reminding us of your love, of your forgiveness, of your grace. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. When Jesus passed down this tradition to Paul, this is what he said to him specifically. Paul said, "For I received from the Lord what I also handed on to you, which we also hand down to the younger people around us, who will hopefully hand down to the people around them." As we hand this on, he said, on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took a loaf of bread. And after he'd given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Later, after dinner, he prayed and he took this cup and he said, "This cup is to remind you of my blood that's poured out for you, the sacrifice that is given, the promise that is made. I will never, ever break my promise. My grace and my forgiveness is always there for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And as often as you eat the bread and you drink this cup, we proclaim the Lord's death and resurrection until he comes again. Now, just a reminder, as you come forward, you exit to your left and come forward and receive the elements. If you have a family, if you have kids, we'd ask them to stay and receive a blessing by myself, by Pastor Darren, Pastor David's up top there, and then kind of come back. If you're on the outside edges, you got to be careful and just shuffle your way back. Sometimes you can make it all the way out and around, make it through. You'll make your way. Enjoy this time. Enjoy this tradition. Take your time and enjoy the moment.
Begin with the back row down here. Behold the Lamb who bears our sins away, slain for us. And we remember the promise made that all who come in faith find forgiveness at the cross. So we share in this bread of life, and we drink of his sacrifice as a sign of our bonds of peace around the table of the King. The body of our Savior Jesus Christ, torn for you. Eat and remember the things that heal, the death that brings us life, paid the price to make us one. So we share in this bread of life, and we drink of his sacrifice as a sign of our bonds of love around the table of the King. The blood that cleanses every stain of sin shed for us. Drink and remember, he drained death's cup that all may enter in to eternal home. But for now, I walk this broken world. You walked it first. You know our pain, but you show hope can rise again up from the grave. Abide with me, abide with me. Don't let me fall, and don't let go. Walk with me and never leave. Ever close, God, abide with me. There in the night, Gethsemane, before the cross, before the nails, overwhelmed, alone you prayed. You met us in our suffering and bore our shame. Abide with me, abide with me. Don't let me fall, don't let go. Walk with me and never leave. Ever close, God, abide with me. Oh, love that will not ever let me go. 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 And up ahead, eternity, we'll weep no more, we'll sing for joy. Abide with me.
Would you pray with me? Gracious God, we thank you for the table and how it reminds us how much you love us, and in turn, how much we can love those around us. Help us, Father, to love our brothers and sisters well. Help us to love those who do not know you. Give us eyes to see and a heart to love those who are not like us. God, may our actions show them the good news of your love. God, we want to remember a few people this morning. We think of Tony Shizan, who is recovering from surgery. We think of Nancy Piersma, whose broken arm is healing. Think of Dan Story, who recently broke his hip. God, please bring them a swift and steady recovery. And may we, as your body, encourage them and support them. God, there are many who are grieving loved ones recently. Think of Julia and Gail, Greg and Pam, Brian and Phyllis. And God, we pray for their hearts as they grieve, that they would find their strength in you, God, that they would be made whole again. Thank you, God, for being at work in our lives, in our church, in our homes, in our city, and in the world. God, help us to see you at work. Help us have eyes that are open to what you are doing, and give us hearts of bravery that we would step in and join you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. As the ushers come forward for the offering in a moment, I would like to remind everyone to please fill out your Connect cards. Let us know that you're here, and if you have anything to pray for. Thank you.
Like a hurricane, I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are, how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. Kids, you are dismissed to your Sunday school. Kids, go ahead and be dismissed. He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane, I am a tree, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are, how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all. Would you stand and sing? Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. And we are his portion, and he is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. And heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way Yeah, he loves
What a wonderful song. Amen. It reminds us how much he loves us. He sent his son to die for our sins, the greatest sacrifice ever made. That's how he expressed his love for us. All of us have an opportunity to have a relationship with him today because he loves us. Can you give the Lord a hand clap of praise for that this morning? I am truly grateful for this opportunity to stand before you this morning. I know I speak for my wife. We are so blessed to be a part of this great church, this great ministry. We are excited about what God is doing here, and we're very blessed to be a part of it. Now, I'd like to start off to say I'm a type of preacher that like to hear some amens. Amen. If I don't hear amens, then I'm gonna stick a pin right there, and I'm gonna stay there for a while. Your amens help me move on. Amen. Amen. All right. Praise the Lord. If you would look to your screen, I believe the scripture will be there. Will be the book of Numbers, the 13th chapter, and we're going to read verses 25 through 30. I have to put my other eyes on. And verse 33. Amen. I'm reading from the NLT version of the word. It reads, "After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community that they had seen and shown them the fruit that they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak, the Amalekites in the Negev, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live among the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. 'Let us go at once to take the land,' he said. 'We can certainly conquer it.' Verse 33 said, they said, 'We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers.' And that's what they thought too. How do we view our problems? If it's one thing I really believe that we all can agree on, is that we all have experienced problems in our life. Like that, amen. I believe I'm safe to say that as we are on this side of glory, we will continue to have problems in our life. I believe that not all our problems, though, that happen to us are bad in God's eyes. Amen. That things happen to us because we live in a fallen world. Because Adam and Eve sinned, and Scripture teaches that God lets it rain on the just and the unjust. So that helps me to understand that everything bad to us may not be bad to God. I can back that up with Scripture in Romans 8:28, where he tells us we know that all things, good or bad, I added the good or bad, amen, work together for good to them that love God. And so when certain problems arise in our lives, we feel like we can't handle it. And we need to remember that God is going to work something good out of it. That's the view that God wants us to have this morning. Sometimes God allows problems to take us to another level spiritually. Sometimes he uses problems in our life to make us trust him more. And a lot of times, and I think most of the times, he allowed problems in our life to draw us closer to him. He helps us to know that we can't, on this Christian journey, do it on our own. That we have to have him in our lives. So we have acknowledged thus far that we are going to always have problems. Amen? We've acknowledged that God can use our problems for his and our good. Amen? So experiencing problems in our life is really not the main thing we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what I believe is 90% of the real issue of our problem. And that is how we view our problems. To God, that's very important because he knows problems are going to arise. He wants to know how you're going to handle it. He wants to know how do you see it. I believe it's the same concept of it's not really what people do to us that concerns God. It's how we respond to it. Amen? There's many examples in the Bible of men and women who had problems. Would you agree? Amen. A couple of them I would just like point out to us, and let's see how they viewed their problem. Do we view our problems like David viewed Goliath? We all know that that was a problem for David. Amen. He was, scripture says, a ruddy boy, reddish hair, and he was a young man. Goliath, 9 feet tall, the Philistines' best warrior, and full of all this body armor, and had to have somebody hold his shield, and I mean, just this massive of a man standing before David. And he even came out to David and said, I'm going to, when I get done with you, I'm going to feed your carcass to the birds and to the wild animals. And David's response and how David viewed his problem is that I'll kill you just like I killed a lion and a bear that came up against my sheep. It wasn't Goliath. That wasn't really impressed me that he was standing before Goliath, which was his problem. What impressed me is how he viewed the problem. Can I get a witness this morning? Amen. The problem wasn't too big for him to solve because he didn't take the credit. He gave the credit to the God of Israel. Can I get a witness this morning? Do we view our problems like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? 3 Hebrew boys that was captured and under King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon at that time. And King Nebuchadnezzar had built a golden statue 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide. And the story was that whenever the people heard the instruments played, they were supposed to stop whatever they were doing and bow down to this golden image. Well, we know the story, and if they did not do that, they were going to be thrown in the fiery furnace. Well, we know that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would not bow down, and so King Nebuchadnezzar said, heat the furnace up 7 times hotter. I believe that was a huge problem. But their response was even better to me. They told the king, our God we serve is able to save us. But even if he doesn't, we will not bow down to your God. Man, what a great response. What a great way to view a problem. Because they believed that God would rescue them. Their relationship with God was so strong, even if he didn't, they was not going to disobey God. So the way they viewed the problem of the furnace saved their lives. Because we know that when they were thrown in the fiery furnace, they came out unscathed, unscorched. You know, they didn't even smell smoke on them. As a matter of fact, King Nebuchadnezzar said, we threw 3 in, but I see 4 walking around. one looking like the angel of the Lord. Amen? Amen. So I believe that God wants us to view our problems or see our problems the way he sees them. I believe that he wants us to see them that the problem is not bigger than God, but God is bigger than the problem. By seeing things from God's perspective, my brothers and sisters, we can conquer the problems that arise in our life. Which brings us to our text this morning. We find the Israelites faced a huge dilemma, a huge problem. It's not like this was the first problem that the Israelite nation had experienced. They were slaves, you remember, under the misrule and mistreatment of Pharaoh for over 400 years. I believe slavery was a problem. They finally escaped slavery, and with the help of God through Moses and the 10 plagues and the Pharaoh's heart, and even after that, notice this wasn't a few folk. This was over 1 million people. They found themselves in front of the Red Sea. The Red Sea was before them, this huge body of water, and then they found out that Pharaoh and his armies was barreling down in behind them, and I believe they thought that was a huge problem. It's no secret, my brothers and sisters, like you and I today, that the Israelites had their share of problems. They had their share of obstacles to go around. They had their share of mountains to climb, and they had their share of pitfalls to overcome. But it's how they viewed their problems that made the difference. If I may stick a pin right here, you've been doing good by saying amen, but I have to stick a pin here and just give you this golden nugget, because if you also follow the journey of the Israelites, their complaining hindered how they viewed their problems. Can I get a witness? You can't complain and be thankful at the same time. It doesn't work that way. And so every time they complained, they didn't see the problem the way God wanted them to. Moses, it's your fault, is what they said. Moses, and you're not leading us right. Moses, you got us into this mess. Moses, you should have left us in Egypt. What they were saying is, because their problems to them were so big, you should have left us in slavery. Man, what a horrible way to view a problem. Instead of wanting to move forward, because they felt the problems were so large and so huge in their life, they were willing to go back to bondage because they didn't view their problems the way God wanted them to. And sometimes, the way we view our problems, we find ourselves fault-finding, pointing the finger at someone else for our problems. You did this to me. If you wouldn't have responded to me, if they wouldn't have cut me off, if they would have not said this or done this to me. See, we have to be careful that again, God is not concerned about what someone else does to us. He is, but not more so than how we respond to the issue. Do we have a godly heart about it? As a matter of fact, I believe the scripture says, do not render evil for evil. Is that we do not retaliate and seek vengeance the way the world does. And so if we would view our problems differently than Israel was viewing theirs, if we would see God that he's able to help us and see us through whatever the issue is, we can have and live a blessed and prosperous life. Here in the scripture text, Israel was preparing to enter Canaan, the land of Canaan, as was promised to them. They was lodged in Kadesh at the southern edge of the wilderness of Paran. Moses sends 12 spies out to scout out the land. And the text is where the 12 spies come back and give Moses and Aaron and the community their report. He says, verse 25 and 20 through 27, he says, after exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community that they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. This was their report. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. So the land was exactly the way God had told them and their ancestors it would be. It was bountiful in its resources. It was bountiful in its fruit. As a matter of fact, if you go back up to verse 23, it says they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that it took two of them to carry it in a pole between them. It was so bountiful. It was so much fruit. It was so heavy. It was so much of it is that one person had a pole and the other had another one in front of them, and the fruit hung on the pole. This is the fruit that they brought back to Moses and to Aaron and the whole community to show them that the country and that the land was truly flowing with milk and honey. But I think I don't want to skip over this part because I think it's very important. God promised them the land. If you would go to Exodus, if you have your Bible or your phone and whatever you use, amen. If you would go to Exodus chapter 13, verse 5, he says, and you must celebrate this event in this month each year after the Lord brings you into a land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Watch this. He swore to their ancestors that he would give you this land flowing with milk and honey. So not only was it a bountiful, full of resources, I think more importantly, the reason they should have went into the country is because God told them it was theirs. I mean, you just don't get no better than that. Is that, yes, it was exactly the way it's supposed to have been, but God told them it's yours. Go get it. Go take it. And the land, it was theirs, but I believe more importantly, what they should have been focusing on is what God said. How many times have we heard God tell us to do something? How many times have we heard him tell us to say something positive or encouraging to someone? How many times we knew that the only way this door was open for us or that opportunity came our way, it was because of God. That promotion was because of God. That wayward child came back because of God. That marriage was healed when it was broken because of God. The Israelites, God's people, opportunity was right here. All they had to do was go take the land that God had promised them and their ancestors. But something happened. The way they viewed the problem hindered their blessings. The way they viewed all of the good that they saw in the land, it hindered their blessings because verse 28, they says, but the people living there was powerful. Their towns was large and fortified. We even saw giants there. The descendants of Anak, verse 33, we even saw giants. They had to say that twice to them. We had to let you know that twice. They're the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. Man, how they were viewing their problem, how they were viewing that situation, that dilemma in front of them was going to hinder their blessings. The Israelites saw that their problems was too big to handle. They saw the negative in the land and it outweighed the positive, and watch this, and the promise. You can't let your problems and circumstances that come up in your life outweigh God's promises. He'll never leave you nor forsake you. Listen, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Those are promises that God gives, and I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Those are promises that God make in his word for us, his people. And we can't let, no matter what the problem is, I don't care how insurmountable you think it is, God is bigger than the problem. But in spite of the promises that God had gave the ancestors to possess the land, they viewed their problems, and how they viewed their problems made them see giants. Do you see your problem as a giant? Do you see things that come up against you as giants? Not only did they see giants, they saw fortified cities. Cities that couldn't be penetrated. Well, we do know the story. I guess I could jump a little bit further. That after they took the land, you know the story of Jericho. They walked around it the way they obeyed the way God had told them to walk around it, and they blew the trumpets, and the walls of Jericho, hallelujah, fell down. Amen, I like them. Praise the Lord. Brothers and sisters, when we can read God's promises in his word, when we know that God has brought us out of some stuff in our past, when he has shown himself to be faithful to us even when we haven't been faithful to ourselves. He does that because he wants us to believe that no matter what we are going through, no matter how the situation may look, no matter how big the problem may be, our view should be that our God is able. So I ask you today, how do you view your problems? See, the Israelites viewed it negatively. Don't let your negative situations cause you to lose sight on how good God has been to you, because he has been good to you and I. Don't let potential difficulties in your life blind you to God's power in your life. He's saying to us here at Forest Park, don't let your negative view of your problems hinder God's blessings in your life. Are you going to have problems? I think we all agreed earlier, absolutely. Are you going to have negative situations? I think we all can agree we will. But we also know that we got a God that loves us. That's what the song said. And because he loves us, he will be there for us in our times of trouble. Let's not be like the Israelites here. Because the sad problem here in the text is that they shouldn't have hesitated to take the land. Wow. They shouldn't have hesitated. You shouldn't hesitate to see the problems you have like God wants you to. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to step out on faith. Don't hesitate to walk by faith and not by sight. The Israelites shouldn't have hesitated. They should have went right in. But because of all of what they've been through, because they viewed their problem, they would be delayed in receiving what God has for them. Numbers 14:34, if you didn't know this, because their men explored the land for 40 days, you must wander in the wilderness for 40 years. That's how they began to wander in the wilderness. It was because of how they viewed their problem. They didn't see that he was bigger than the problem. So God said, because of that, that's a sin to me. And because they scouted the land for 40 days, you're going to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. As a matter of fact, boy, I'm almost done, but the Lord just dropped this in my spirit. He didn't allow those that was 20 and up to enter the promised land. Their negative thinking, you know, sometimes we can get set in our ways, and those that were 20 and up died off. The only ones that seen the land was Joshua and Caleb. The only ones those were the only two from the generation. Everybody else had died off, which kind of helps me to understand when you're younger, you're impressionable. That when you're younger, your mind can be changed. Can I get a witness? That when you're younger, your mind is like a sponge. And so I just encourage us as I get ready to take my seat. Let's not be complainers in front of our children. Let our children see us handle problems and see problems the way God wants us to see them. Because it will help them down the road. Because they'll be able to say, man, mom and daddy handled that problem with prayer. Then you know what? I'm going to handle my problem with prayer. When that man came and said something negative to my father and he didn't respond, guess what? When somebody bully me or say something at school, I'm going to respond the way my father responded. So let's be impressionable to our young people as we view our problems the way God wants us to. Thank you.
Let's stand and respond to the word we have heard this morning. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, since curse has lost its grip on me, for I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand, till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Find my strength. I find my strength. I find my home. I find my help in Christ alone. When fear assails, when darkness falls, I find my peace in Christ alone. I give my life. I give my all. I sing my song to Christ alone, the King of Kings. Here in the power of Christ, I'll stand.
Oh, how Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. And he wasn't kidding. But here in the power of Christ, here in the power of Jesus, we stand. What a way to view the problems and the struggles of life that we face. Thank you, brother, for that wonderful word that encourages us to live in the power of Christ as we go from this place into the world in which he has called us to live and to serve. And as we go, we remind you that we have a time of fellowship and coffee and cookies and a time to encourage one another in the gathering place. We also remind you that our prayer team is here at the front. If you have a struggle, a problem that you're wrestling with, that you just want someone to pray with you about, maybe not even for you, but for someone who you know, for some situation, please come, take advantage of them, and pray with them today before you leave. Let us go now in the power of Christ, in whom we stand each day, each moment, until that day when we meet him face to face and we enter into his presence for eternity. Amen.
What? No, the whole team came around, so they should be good. Yeah, thanks. I sent them down. Yeah, thanks. I'm taking note from you and Dylan. Shut up! Like, Bye, Kelly. Good to have you here.
I lift my eyes up, my help comes from the Lord. I lift my eyes up, my help comes from